Welcome to the channel. This is Exile. My name is Raymond Grant. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what this channel will be about. Millions of people around the world are exiled from their dreams of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Through social, political, and/or military oppression, millions of us are forced to leave our dreams, our lives, our homes, and our homelands. For those of us who survive to find refuge in societies and cultures not our own, there is dislocation, discrimination, and disillusionment. Safe haven turns out to be neither safe nor a haven for many of us. On the channel, we're going to seek to examine the loss of potential. We're also going to look into how those in power, due to their majority, their endowment, or inheritance, consolidate their power through the disparity of wealth and ideology. We're going to start our examination with Jamaica. Jamaica is a young developing nation that exemplifies the failure of a dream, its potential squandered. We're also going to keep up with the upcoming US presidential election race between Donald Trump and Mike Pence versus Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to examine the loss of potential for the United States as the American dream fades. So thank you for joining us. Do feel free to hit the like button, and would be even better, do subscribe. And thanks again for joining us. Cheers.
Okay. Thank you, Raymond. Welcome to the Exile channel. My name is Asa Su, along with my co-host Raymond Grant. We'll be presenting the Exiles for your evaluation and consideration. This is episode 1, the Jamaican Election 2020, a Hobson's Choice. On August 11, 2020, the ruling government of Jamaica announced, to the surprise of its citizens and the opposition party, that on September 3rd, the citizens of this island nation will be going to the polls. Jamaica's general election will take place 23 days after the announcement. With the diaspora population greater than those living in the island country, those abroad, along with those at home, are all wondering why. What is this all about? Why the snap election in the midst of a pandemic? They haven't even gotten the pandemic under control, and yet they are calling a general election. Emotions are running high, and there is plenty of questions coming from all corners. Well, we're lucky that we have our own resident Jamaican exile, Mr. Raymond Grant, who has looked into this unusual move by the Jamaican government and will share with us his findings. Raymond?
Thank you, Asa. Welcome, everybody. We have an interesting topic today raised by Asa. Asa, you're correct. This is a historic occasion. This is the first time this has ever happened in Jamaica. There are two basic reasons why this has happened for this snap election. One reason is the reason most people accept, and the government wouldn't say this, but everybody knows, is it's a political opportunism. It's a political opportunity for the government because all the polls show that they're in a double-digit lead over the opposition. So, politicians being politicians, and there being no fixed election date in Jamaica, the Prime Minister has called the election for when he's at the peak of his popularity, because an election is constitutionally due by February next year.
Also, actually, he could very well have waited February, but he decided to do it now.
For one of the reasons I just stated, which
Right.
is that he's up in the polls now, and I don't think he can go much higher. He's like double digits, like nearly 30%
Right.
high. So that's the reason most people And most people are not giving him too hard a time for that, because politicians are politicians, and why should he wait for a time when
his fortunes
his
might
fortunes
change, right?
might be different,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
However, their second reason, which is actually connected to the first reason, is second reason is really the real reason, or the more fundamental reason. Prior to the pandemic hitting in the 14th of March, so
Right.
I go back a little bit in a little bit of a recent history here. Jamaica was humming along. Things
Right.
were going. Conditions were not perfect by far. A lot of poverty still and so on, but slowly things seem to be improving, and certainly the mercantile class was happy. A lot of big corporations are doing very well. I'll give you an example. Dr. Nigel Clark, who is a finance minister, second most powerful person in the government, said on October 2nd, 2019, and I quote, "Jamaica continues on its positive development transition," unquote. Very confident sounding Dr. Clark. This is October last year.
Right.
Okay? So every quote I'm giving you is from out of the Jamaica Gleaner newspaper, the largest paper in Jamaica. So on the 8th of December 2019, Dr. Clark again said Jamaica he's boasting now, 3.6 billion in reserves. This is December last year.
That's quite a bit.
Yes, I think that was about the healthiest our reserves have ever been, our foreign exchange reserves. And also, that's when the tourism season has started. And
that's right.
It's the winter, right?
Yeah.
So everything is humming along. But they're not in talk of elections, because it can only get better from there, right? On the 19th of December, Dr. Clark again, Jamaica is entering an exciting new period with initial conditions anchored on hard-earned economic stability. Still very confident. However, on the 14th of March, the pandemic hit.
Right.
On the 28th of March, Dr. Clark said, Jamaica has US 3.1 billion in reserves. Still confident, right? Down 0.5 of billion, but 3 billion is a lot for Jamaica to have in reserves, 3.1 billion. You see, everybody, including the government of Jamaica, myself included too, when I said everybody, thought that this virus crisis was going to be a short-lived thing like previous ones in our lifetime.
Right.
So, and to illustrate that, the BOJ in its projection for on the 5th of June 2020, this is during the pandemic now, 2 months after it's going on, they still were predicting a containment by the end of June this year.
So the government thought that by the end of June, if nothing else, the pandemic in Jamaica would start to shrink, start to be under control.
Actually, they first thought in March, the day after the pandemic hit, the government actually issued a statement. Well, not the government, Dr. Clark himself again. Because he's been like the point man on this for a lot. He's had to since take a back seat because he's been wrong so many times. But Dr. Clark said, this is the day after the pandemic, 15th of March this year. The government did not expect the virus to go beyond 30 days because I quote the Gleaner, where he stated, cruise lines are likely to suspend their arrivals for at least 30 days.
Mm.
The tourism sector will be hit hard in the short term.
Oh, okay.
So you see, the initial projection right at the time of the pandemic was, maybe 30 days, a month or so, right?
Right.
Didn't happen. Then now they go on to say, well, maybe by the end of June. Still didn't happen. Jamaica is right now suffering a major spike. The entire army is confined to barracks and will not be released until every single soldier has been tested. The Commissioner of Police has come down with COVID-19 and is in bed recovering at home in quarantine. We wish them all the best. But it shows this ain't gonna be no short term.
So it sounds like that with all the things that happened around the world, they didn't seem to take note what was happening in Italy or any of these hotspots. and they just still assumed that everything was going to be all right by June or so, that they would have it handled by June.
I think when the pandemic first hit in March,
Right.
Dr. Fauci himself
Yeah,
Center
yeah.
of Disease
Well, that's
Control
understandable. But
said
we're
it
talking
was
about
not
June now, right? By
Yeah,
that time,
yeah.
Italy already happened, and
Yes.
and U.S. is already,
Yeah.
you know.
Why they? I think they issued a statement in June was because Jamaica went into a severe lockdown, and Jamaica initially really did contain the virus.
Oh, okay.
So they thought to be wiped out and we'd be virus free by the end of June.
Oh, okay. Okay.
See
I
what I'm
see.
saying?
Yeah.
And of course, the trouble is the country being a one-legged economy where tourism is the main foreign exchange earner,
Right.
then that
They opened up.
they had to open up the country.
Oh.
And our main source of tourists is the United States, which is the hotbed of the world when
Yes,
it comes
yes,
to the
yes.
virus. So, the real reason, I come back to the real reason for this snap election
Mm-hmm.
is one of timing, because the country is going to run out of money.
So the 3.6 billion
Mm-hmm.
went down to 3.1, and
Yes.
so they're
All right, so we start now on the 20th of March at 3.1 billion.
right.
5th of June,
Uh-huh.
the Bank of Jamaica made its prediction that they're going to contain it by the end of the month. Right?
Yes.
19th of July, the BOJ announces, Dr. Clark himself announces that the BOJ, this is not an announcement from the BOJ, it's an announcement from Dr. Clark, that the US, they have US 1 billion in reserves.
So a lot of it's gone already. Yeah,
Yeah.
but they
That's
still
a-
have one.
Yeah,
Anyways,
that's 1 billion, so they've dropped 2.6,
yeah,
2
2.6 billion since
No, it
the,
was 2
the initial
yes,
announcement,
yes, right, correct.
back last year in December.
And in that same statement now, Dr. Clark's, and I quote him again, the COVID-19 pandemic is the most serious global public health threat in a century and is easily the most damaging global economic crisis since the Depression of the 1930s. It is wreaking health, social, and economic havoc in every country. Jamaica is no exception. So you see, there is a change in the tone now.
Right, now you finally
The
recognize.
reason why the change in the tone is because the change in the pocket.
Oh, okay. The money's gone.
The money is going.
Oh, going, yes.
So, I'm going to give you some figures just to show how the money is running out. We started out, the average amount of foreign exchange outflow of Jamaica, according to Richard Biles, the governor of the Bank of Jamaica, in his statement on the 19th of January 2020, the average daily foreign exchange US dollar outflow is 30 million per day. Now, normally, in normal times, 30 million might go out, but 20 million might come in. The next day, 30 million go out, maybe 40 million. It's averages, But
Right.
average, for calculation purposes, 30 million a day. Keep that figure in mind. So at that rate, the 1 billion they have in reserves,
Right.
divided by 30 million, is equal to,
33 days.
go to the head of the class. Okay, you cannot run a country with 1 billion, or like Jamaica, with 1 billion. In other words, you're going to run out of money in 33 days.
That's
For
very
Jamaica, which imports everything as a serious crisis, it means in a state where the country is already locked down, there will be no money for fuel because all the fuel is imported. Then so the lights would go out.
Right.
All the water pumps are electrical pumps, so the water would stop running, right? And of course the internet would go down, and the refrigerated products would all spoil, and it would just be a calamity. So the government had to do something. Fortunately, the IMF, because of the crisis, had a thing they call rapid financing instrument. So the government of Jamaica went to the IMF, and with tick a clock like that, the IMF allowed Jamaica to borrow. This is all borrow. Allowed Jamaica to borrow 520 million from the IMF's rapid financing instrument. So that gave Jamaica an additional 17 days. Not very long, so, but every day now counts, eh?
Right.
The BOJ capital financing to set up the bank is 138 million, so of US dollars. We're all talking US dollars here, because that's the only real money in Jamaica. They have a Jamaican dollar, we're going to ignore that. I'm sorry, those who have issues of sovereignty with that, too bad. The Jamaican dollar is a worthless piece of paper. It's backed by the US dollar.
Okay.
So and everything is priced and costed in US dollars.
Right.
So we might as well use our figures, or else we'll be bouncing all over the place if we use the Jamaican dollar.
Right.
It's up, it's never up, it's always down. So today we'd say one thing, next day it would be irrelevant because the Jamaican dollar will have collapsed another 2-3%.
Right.
Okay, so Jamaica now has 17 days, right? So the BOJ capital financing, 138 million, which liquidated comes out to 138 divided by 30.
It's about 5 days.
5 days, not much, but every little, like a moklu we say in Jamaica,
Right.
which means in patois, translated, every little bit counts.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a thing called the contingencies fund, which was a fund that the IMF mandated that Jamaica had to set this up for rainy days, for emergencies, because we're in a hurricane zone, we're in an earthquake zone. So it was really set up expecting for hard times if you get hit by a hurricane, disasters like hurricanes, national disasters. So the IMF allowed the Jamaican government to access that contingencies fund, which had just been recently boosted to 4.5 billion. So they took the bill to the House and got it passed. None of the politicians would object to that because these are dark days, right? So they got 4.5 billion out of the contingencies fund. Now, at an outflow of 30 million a day, that works out to how many days?
150 days.
Boy, another gold star. You're great here, you're good. I won't say that Chinese are always good at math, but all the Chinese I know are good at math. Therefore, if you add up the days, we started, remember?
33 days.
We started with 1 billion in reserve.
33.
So we add 33 days.
Yeah.
Then to the 17 days.
Yeah.
Then the 5 days from the BOJ capital financing. Then the 150 days from the contingency funds.
Right.
Total is
about 205 days.
And that works out to about
slightly less than 7 months, right?
Like slightly less than 7 months.
Yeah.
The crisis started 14th March.
Right.
You add 7 months to the 14th March, what do you get to?
Well, that's October.
14th October, roughly. So say October.
Yeah.
The money runs out in October.
Oh, that's...
So, the only option now for the government to do, when that happens, the situation becomes untenable, the country collapses, there'll be riots in the streets, it'll be all over. So, the government has to fix that gap between whenever the recovery comes and when the money runs out in October.
Right.
Therefore, they have to borrow that money.
Right.
The first source they're going to go to borrow, although the IMF is what they call borrow of last resort.
Right.
We have a historic relationship with the IMF. The interest rates will be lower, but the IMF comes with a package. It's not, they come with strings attached, conditions.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you how to do what, where, when, and how.
Right.
Also, the second source of international financing would be borrowing on the open market, international market. Right. Mr. Holness needs to have a mandate, electoral mandate that goes beyond February of next year.
Right.
Or else, no borrower will give him anything past that.
Nobody will lend it, yeah.
They'll give him a package up to that date. And
Right.
he doesn't want that. He wants a significant amount that he can weather this storm.
Right.
And stay in power too, right? So, in order to strengthen his hand, he has to get to the IMF by October, before the 14th, with a mandate from the people that he can say to them, look, I'm going to be in power until the 14th I mean, not the 14th, until for 4 more years
Yeah.
from the date of the election, September 3rd.
Right.
And so it strengthens his hand to his
Yeah.
negotiating hand with the IMF and other international bodies like the World Bank and the international market.
Right.
So that is the real reason for the snap election.
Right.
Their government is not being transparent
Right.
in telling people this, because if they were to make such an announcement, the situation of the dollar collapsing if they don't get the money
Right.
would become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Speculators would go on a buying spree
Right.
for US dollars
Right.
because the IMF is probably going to order a devaluation.
Right.
So speculators would run out and the dollars wouldn't even last till October. They would run out in 2 weeks or less.
Right.
Because we have a lot of people in Jamaica who have money.
Mm-hmm.
And not just in Jamaica, international speculators will speculate against our dollar too.
Of course.
So Mr. Holness and the government can't really reveal this reason. I'm revealing it because I became aware of this, and I'm also aware of all the criticism Mr. Holness is receiving, and he has a valid reason to do what he is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in the country's best interest to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever wins the election on September 3rd will have that mandate
Mm-hmm.
to go to the IMF and to the international market
Right.
to borrow to fill that gap between October and whenever the recovery is
Mhm.
going to be.
And it seemed like Mr. Holness is not taking any chances by calling such a snap election. He's not giving the opposition or anybody any chance to oppose his re-election, basically.
Well, that that goes to the first point I made about opportunism.
Right.
Yeah. So both reasons
I
dovetail.
mean, there's many governments who call an election when they're high on the polls, but I have yet to hear a
One or
Western
some.
government who give the country 23 days to get ready for it. I mean, like, your holiday is longer than 23 days, right? Let alone a campaign,
Yeah.
to
Well-
contest a national campaign. That's so looks like he has taken no chances in this regard.
Yeah, you're correct. So, to sum up, there is a legitimate, fundamental reason that the government has called this election, and the reason is, although the electoral fortunes, opportunistically speaking, are in the favor of the current administration,
Right.
the underlying reason is, and we should do another program at some time, or another taping about that, regarding how Jamaica is a one-legged economy.
Right.
Remittances is a second leg, but that's coming from overseas. That's not
Yeah.
coming from Jamaica.
Right.
So Jamaica, for all intents and purposes, is a one-legged economy. And when that leg is,
Pulled out from under you.
it will collapse unless you prop it up with something borrowed.
Right. And furthermore, like, given that precarious situation where Jamaica, I think maybe tourism is easy money, right?
Mhm.
So, and it has been on the doorstep with the U.S. It has been good in the past, but
Mhm.
this has shown that it is not a very good model to keep a country stable and through tough times, right?
Yeah, I think what we should, at another time, we should do a program on the economy of Jamaica, and how a country like Jamaica could follow an example of a country like, for example, Singapore, where you have lived, if I understand.
Right. I was there about 21 years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you're an expert on Singapore. So I think it would be good for us to exchange some
To
ideas,
compare,
yes,
yeah.
with terms of how Lee
Kuan Yew,
Kuan Yew did in Singapore, vis-a-vis how Jamaica performed by comparison.
Right.
And I think that would be a valid discussion for another time. So I'm going to thank everybody for, if you have anything else you want to say.
Well, I mean, this goes towards our main theme that Jamaica started out with a quasi-diverse economy. Since independence has opted for the easy way out by embracing tourism and foregoing all the other segments of the economy, and now they are importing everything, therefore in desperate need of foreign exchange. And yet when such a black swan event as the pandemic happens, they find themselves totally unable to get themselves out of this, because even if you borrow from the IMF, from what I can see, it is like they giving you a fish. You eat until the fish is done. Are you going to be able to get any more? It's hard to say. Even if a vaccine is forthcoming, that may not be available or may not be to the general population or to mitigate the circumstance until next year. And beyond that, there'll be a curve in which you try to stage some kind of recovery, So it is going to be a long, hard fight to just stay alive. And IMF, this might be just first of many borrowings from IMF. And as the national debt grows, we know what happens to the government. They will not be able to take care of their citizens properly because they are saddled with the debt, right?
We've been there. We've been there.
And tourism may not come back for some time.
Exactly.
Right? Because people are still scared, even with the vaccine.
Yeah. You see, initially, everybody was talking about a V-shaped recovery.
Right.
It was actually a sharp thing, and then quick o'clock, boom, it would be back up.
Right.
What is actually happening is I need a third hand. It's a this recovery. It's this.
It's a U shape. It's a U.
Not even U. A square.
L shape.
No, it's going back up, so it's a square.
Oh, okay.
What do you call that? A kind of U, I guess.
Yeah, it's a broad
but
U.
It's broad U, right? It's surviving in between the middle layers is where we are.
And to think that Jamaica might have to rely on borrowing through all that, it's going to be hard because the whole world is going to be borrowing. I mean, it was not just Jamaica. I mean, the U.S. has printed out tons of money that they don't have, and same with many countries. So you find like of the 200 odd countries in the world, everybody's going to be needing money. IMF, they have so much.
And Jamaica, according to the IMF, in this region is going to be the hardest hit country. Not that we're going to be the poorest, because Haiti is poorer than us. But Haiti, because it's so poor and can't import anything, not going to be hit as hard.
Right.
You get me?
Right.
They'll kind of stay where they are.
Yeah.
But they're kind of hit rock bottom. But in terms of deterioration, it's a country like Jamaica, which had started to sort of struggle out of the morass. It's just going to go crashing down, because what the economy was built on was that one-legged foot of tourism. And the minute that got knocked away, the whole house of cards comes falling down.
And it doesn't have any domestic producers. So it's buying everything, but now they got nothing to buy with. So
exactly.
That's going to be, and the 30 million is for the operation of the government, right?
No, that's for the foreign exchange needs for the whole country.
For the whole country.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's sold through at a window at the Bank of Jamaica. So
I see.
Yeah.
Well, these are scary times ahead, and unfortunately, like most governments around the world, including the Western nations, governments seems to feel that they know better, and by keeping information from their citizens seems to be their way of managing things, which is questionable.
Sorry, go ahead, finish what you're saying.
And you were telling me that emotions are running high.
I believe, you see, they could have gone the transparent route, but they could have done things to prevent the speculation,
right?
Which would have meant exercising sovereignty and saying, look, we're pegging the dollar at that.
Yeah.
and we're not gonna.
That's what Hong Kong did, right?
Yeah,
That's what,
and we're not going to. You won't be able to speculate on the Jamaican dollar.
right.
They would probably have to get. We don't have to get the IMF approval to do that because we're not in an IMF agreement now.
Right.
But when the IMF comes in, the IMF always has this thing about opening up everything and floating everything, and the dollar is going to go way down.
Yeah, that's going to
So,
exacerbate
yeah.
the situation.
So if you're, I mean, it's not that I'm saying that people are encouraging people to profit from hard times, but anybody with money now who follows the market and has done the analysis that I have done is just going to sit on their money until there's an IMF thing coming, which is going to mean and follow it. The dollar is already devaluing on its own. But and I'm not sure what factor speculation is playing in that already, but I believe eventually the speculators are going to come in, and because the IMF is going to insist that the dollar continue to be floated. So thanks, Asa, for the opportunity.
Yeah, a note to our viewers. If you have any comments on the information that we've shared with you, or additional questions, feel free to put your comments below. We'll be reading all the comments coming in, and hopefully, if we could answer them in the next episode or following episodes, we will. And if there are things that you want to find out more about this situation, by all means do that. And
and do hit the like button if you like it, or even better, subscribe. There is a lot more to come. Cheers.
Okay. Thank you.